welcome to the Steele Summer Learning Series. I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. Thank you for choosing to spend your morning with us this morning. The Steele Summer Learning Series is a 12-part series with 12 topics in 12 weeks. Today is week 6. Thank you for those of you that are joining us this morning. Just taking a look at who our guests on the line are. It looks like we have about 3 out of 4 from the HR benefits and payroll community, and most of the rest making up the advisor and brokerage community with some carrier professional representation on the line as well. So welcome to all our guests this morning. This morning we have our first repeat guest speakers this morning, and so I would like to welcome Christine Tollison and Lindsey Martin to the team. And I'd like to start this morning, Christine, by inviting you to reintroduce yourself to our guests.
Good morning, I'm Christine Tollison, Vice President of Technology for Steele. I will be celebrating my 15-year anniversary with Steele on August 1st. Just a reminder to Wes and Mike that that's coming up here in a few weeks. And I look forward to training all of you this morning. I'm glad to see that there are so many doers on the call today, because we've got a lot to present in regards to troubleshooting when you're working in the system.
Perfect. And it's been a great 15-year run, Christine, and we look forward to keeping that going. You and I have been together for almost the entirety of that time together, yeah. So it's been a good run. Lindsey, do you mind sharing with our guests a little bit about how you came to be here on the line today, a little bit about your background?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Lindsey Martin. I'm a systems architect here with Steele. I'll be celebrating my 6-year anniversary in the fall. And I started back initially with Wes, whom I went to high school with him and his sister, and have been a good family friend of theirs. And a few years back, they asked me to join along on the ride with them, and I've been here ever since.
So in addition to Lindsey's kick butt skills on the technology side with Steele, I must also point out that Lindsey was a heck of a center fielder as well. So Christine, Lindsey, welcome to the call today. What I'd like to do, Christine, is kick over to you. I know you've got some jam-packed functionality planned today, talking about life events, digging in the weeds, as well as some other topics that I think our guests are going to really like to hear about. So without further ado, I will let you take it from here.
All righty. So I'm hoping all of you can see my screen for whatever reason. Well, we'll work with this. My slideshow does not appear to be showing in the manner that I want it to. So bear with me here as we work through this process. But today we're going to be talking about some advanced administration within the system, and I'm not sure why my presentation is not working here. Wes, I don't know if you can help me out with any of these technical.
Sure. Is your slide not changing from one slide to the next, Christine?
Right. I've got it on. I'm showing slideshow from beginning. We've done this a million times, and it's not.
Sometimes what I'll do is hit escape and just go out and then restart the slideshow, and usually that'll solve it for me. But I can always take over controls if you need me to.
I might need you to do that because for whatever reason it's not. I apologize for the technical difficulties from the technology department. Let's see if we can get this working here.
Yep, that'll happen sometimes. Christine, if you will unshare, I will work on getting your slides pulled up.
All right.
Okay, bear with me for just one moment.
Too bad we didn't have a good joke prepared for right now.
Oh, I've got a good joke, but you know I can't do 2 things at the same time, but it's the perfect joke for this situation.
We just went all through this slideshow and it worked perfectly, but now when I'm trying to do the transitions, it's not.
That'll happen. All right. All right. We'll restart there, Christine. I'll launch to you.
Okay. So are you going to be controlling this?
Yep, I got it.
All right, perfect. Sorry about that, folks. So we are going to be talking about 4 main topics today: life event troubleshooting and reviewing the 3-step process for entering a life event. We're going to talk about some Cobra troubleshooting, and then we're also going to touch on census and payroll reporting. And most of what we decided to discuss today has been based on information that we received from you as well as from our customer success managers about topics that tend to cause issues when you're working in the system. So common issues when processing life events. Some of the things that we hear are things like, my employee's spouse lost their coverage, but the system won't allow me to enroll them in benefits. I'm processing a new baby, but the plans don't open to enroll. I'm processing a coverage termination and the cancellation date isn't correct. What do I do? Or my employee's salary-based life and disability coverages are not updating when I update their annual income. So I wanted to provide you with some screenshots for the spouse lost other coverage. When you go into enter a life event, you'll go onto the employee's life events tab that's on their record, and you'll select I or my eligible dependent recently lost or gained similar coverage. And this is where a lot of people will get stopped up on issues. Wes, if you want to go over to the next slide, you can be taken to a coverage change section where you'll select the plans and you just go through your normal, your confirmation of entering the life event, entering your PIN and clicking the checkbox. And then you get taken to the enrollment page and you're like, what's happening? The spouse that I need to add who lost coverage isn't listed here. I cannot enroll them in the plan. What do I do? And the issue that's happened is the employee's spouse was not entered in the system to begin with. They weren't on the demographics tab. So the system is not going to allow you to add benefits for that person who lost coverage without them first being added on to the plan. Because with this particular life event, it doesn't take you to an area where you can actually add them first. It's just looking to add dependents who are already on the demographics tab. So what you're going to want to do if you run into that situation is do a life event first of either a marriage or a new birth if it's for a child. Then you'll be able to add the dependents. I wanted to talk a little bit about grace periods versus waiting periods in our system. You're going to be meeting with your customer success manager here soon if you have a fall enrollment for a January effective date. And we're going on right now. Some of our clients will be having their 6th enrollment with us. And chances are you may not be the person who initially implemented the system with us. I just had a conversation with a payroll person at a group, and there was something that was not working correctly within their payroll system. And the comment that they made to me is, well, I inherited this system when I came, and this is the way it's been, and this is the way it's continued to be. And we don't want you to feel that way with our system. If there's things that are not working correctly that need to be updated, we want to make sure that you realize how the back-end system works so that we can help you make sure that things are set up properly. And this is a common area where we run into issues with people being locked out of the system or being able to enroll timely in benefits. So when our professionals sit down and meet with you and talk about grace period and waiting period, I want to make sure that there's some good understanding on what those definitions mean. Grace period being the number of days that the system allows for entry of enrollment or a life event. So day one is always going to be the event date, whether that's the hire date, the birth date, the marriage date. And if the grace period is set to 30 days and you try to add a newborn, say 35 days after the birth date, you're not going to be able to add them into benefits. You'll be able to add them to the demographics tab and to see that they're dependent, but the system's not going to open up to allow you to actually enroll them.
Can we take a little deeper there, Christine?
Sure.
Do we have that happen where, let's say, a customer of ours allows 30 days for an employee to enroll? Is that common where people try to enroll on the 31st day, the 34th day, whatever the case may be?
It's very common, and especially in the case where you're not having employees do their own life events. Someone in the admin office is doing it, and you give the employee 30 days to notify you that they've gotten married or that they've had a childbirth. So maybe they come into your office on day 30 with the information because maybe you're requiring a marriage license or a birth certificate, things like that. And they'll come to you day 30. You're out on vacation at that time, or the person who's entering the information, you just don't have time to get to that on that day. So now it's day 32 when you're actually keying it into the system, and it's not going to open up to allow you to enter those benefits. So if you have a situation where employees are consistently going up to that day 30, or maybe you allow them some leeway and it's day 31 or day 32, let us know because we can extend that grace period for you within your system to give you a few more days or 10 days, whatever you need, just so that you're not consistently always running into an issue of being locked out.
And when we talk about grace period, Christine, are we talking about new hires and how many days new hires have to enroll? Or are we talking about, for example, how many days after the birth of a child that a person might have to add a child?
Both. There's a grace period set up in the system for new hires, and there's also grace periods that we set up for life events.
What if I didn't want to get locked out of my system at 30 days? And let's say I wanted to allow maybe 35 days. Like, is that a thing? Like, do some of our customers still maybe print 30 days on the materials, but just within the systems give themselves a few extra days of lead time?
We definitely recommend that, yes.
Okay, great.
And then you also have the definition of a waiting period, which that defines when benefits begin. So the system is going to calculate the benefit effective date from the date of hire or the eligibility date if it's later. Say you've had a job class change for someone who's moving from a non-benefit eligible class to full-time, then it's going to use the eligibility date. But day one will equal their hire date or their eligibility date, and the effective date can be set to be immediately following or first of the month following that waiting period. So if you set the waiting period to first of the month following 30 days from date of hire, day one is going to be that date of hire. You're going to count 30 days, and then the effective date that the plans are going to calculate to will be first of the month following that.
Christine, when we talk about waiting period, again, are we talking about, I think our guests on the line are probably fairly, that's in their wheelhouse of what they do day to day and week to week as it relates to new hires. I've got, I'm eligible immediately, or eligible on the first of the month following hire, or first of the month after 30 days, or first of the month after 60 days, or after 90 days, et cetera. Does that have to be the same for life events, or how might that be the same or different if, for example, I was a part-time employee that transferred to a full-time position?
That is one area where the group can customize and determine and let us know if someone is going from non-benefit eligible to eligible. Do they want them to meet a new waiting period, or do they want this calculated based on the amount of time that they've already been with the company? Say someone's been with you in a non-benefit eligible class for 90 days. and they're moving to benefit eligible, do they need to meet another 30 days, or are you offering that to that particular, to everyone in that job class, with waiving the time that they've already been working for you?
And to your point earlier, Christine, I'm imagining it could be possible where maybe the system has been running for a number of years, and maybe it's running great for open enrollment, for new hires, for terminations, for data feeds and the like. But maybe have some customers on the line who are using the pencil and manually adjusting effective dates and things. Is there a scenario where you wouldn't recommend automating what a waiting period is in a life event? Or should we, if an employer tells us the rules, we should be able to get them set up to meet their specifications?
We should be able to get them set up to meet their specifications. The area where they would maybe need to manually adjust things is if they have one-offs, because the system is rules-based. And so we cannot set up a rule and then you say, oh, but we have this one person that is within that job class that we made a special offer to, or we're providing them benefits differently than the rule, then that would have to be a manual entry. But if you're consistently using that pencil just because the system is not calculating effective dates correctly, then you need to have a conversation with your CSM, because there could be a couple things happening. Either typically we look at the contracts to make sure that the system is set up based on the contract with the carrier. So there could be some misinterpretation going on there, or it could just be that the system was set up incorrectly and we need to make some adjustments for you.
Gotcha.
And so to get into further some of these issues, most common issue that we encounter when plans don't open up for a newly acquired dependent is exceeding the grace period. And our standard setup is 30 days from the event date, birth or marriage date. But so like I said, we want to make sure that you will let us know if that's a common occurrence, that you're exceeding that 30 days so that we can update those life events for you. And the other thing that we need to look at is rules. If you have had us set up rules where employees are only allowed to enroll in a plan if it's their new hire window, and they're not allowed to enroll, say, at open enrollment. We've got a few groups that do this, especially for dental and vision plans. There may need to be some adjustments made for life events, that if they have a birth or a marriage, what we'll need to know is if someone's not currently covered on that plan and they've had a marriage, are you going to allow them to see the plan and enroll, or can they only add their spouse to an existing plan? So it's just good to have those conversations. If you're not seeing the plans, usually there's some back end reason why, and we need to investigate for you to make sure that we've got the case set up in the manner that you need it to be. Coverage didn't term on the correct date. Coverage terminations are set up in our system using two options for benefits to terminate as of the event date or the last day of the month following the event date. And so if you consistently see an incorrect term date, speak with your customer success manager so we can ensure that we've got your plans configured correctly. One of the common issues that we run into is a situation of an overage dependent. If you are entering a life event to age a child off of a plan and it asks for the event date and your intent is to term their coverage as of the end of the month, then the event date that we want you to use is the last day of the month versus their birthday. Because if you put in the birthday, then it's going to term their coverage as of that date. So just be sure that you're putting the end of the month in, and that way coverage will be extended through the end of that month.
Christine, when Selerix users terminate an employee, do they have to have all their benefits set up the same way? So in other words, like if my medical terminates to the end of the month, but my vision terminates to the date of the event, and my dental terms to the end of the month, and some other benefit terms on the date of the event, like is that something that the system can handle, or does it have to be consistent across the board?
They're all configured individually, so we can set that up across the board. And the main issue that we run into for our school clients is the end of the school year if they want to extend coverage, say through the month of August, but they need to cancel all of the other benefits as of the end of May. And so what we recommend that they do is they'll need to list the termination date as of the end of August so that coverage will extend through August, and then they will need to go in using the pencil on the coverage tab and terminate the benefits that they want to terminate as of May 31st or as of June 30th, whatever date those should be termed.
And is it fair to say that if somebody needs more training on canceling benefits with different effective dates, that the proper course of action would be to reach out to their customer success manager?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we talked about this during our last call regarding life events, but for salary-based benefits, if you find that automation is not working, the system does have the ability, if your contracts are set up, that anytime there's a salary increase, that salary-based benefits should be updating and changing. You should be able to, and we can set it up for you, that once you enter in the new salary in the salary field, that those benefits would recalculate for you. If it's not doing that, a couple of things that we want you to do is, first of all, we want you to confirm with your carrier that that's how your contract reads, because we do have several companies that they will only adjust benefits one time per year. So we don't want to be adding this automation to your case if it's not contractually set up that way. But if it is, then provide that information to your CSM and we can get your case updated for you. I'm going to turn this part of the presentation over to Lindsey to talk to you about the 3-step process of completing a life event.
All right, so we are going to review all 3 steps that you have to do. It's really important for you guys to know that you have to complete all 3 steps to ensure that the life event is complete and there's nothing else that needs to be done on your part, and that all the coverages are in force and dependents have been added as needed, etc. So the first step is going to be entering the life event. The second step, which is our most commonly missed step, is that you have to re-enroll the employee in all of the benefits that you have chosen to allow them to make adjustments to. So by simply entering that the individual had a baby does not automatically add them to the medical insurance, dental insurance, etc. So you must re-enroll them and actually re-sign a new confirmation statement that will go on their employee record. And then when you're finished, you're just going to want to review the coverage tab to make sure that individuals that you're looking to be covered are on the coverage section, to make sure that the effective date is now correct with it, let's say an 8/1 effective date or a 7/8 effective date, and that your deduction dates look correct on there.
And so, Lindsey, just to make sure we're on the same page, and I know you got some screenshots coming up in the next slides to come, what we're talking about here is not a new hire per se or a termination. This is more of the marriage, birth, adoption, divorce, change of job classification, full-time to part-time, 3-step process that somebody would need to do in order to update somebody's coverage in the event that they have an event like that, correct?
Yep. So you have an active employee that has had some sort of change that we need to possibly re-enroll them or move them into other benefits and still keep them as an active employee. So the first step is you're going to go to life events and select the life event that applies for the situation that you're going to. So in this instance, that you're going to marry the employee.
And is it true, Lindsey, that if an employee, this would be a situation where self-service life events are not set up, correct? So this would be a customer of ours where HR is managing the life events instead of allowing the employee to manage their own life events, yes?
Yes. So if you are having your employee do their own life events, they could do anything that would be related to their personal life, but anything related to their employment would again be done by the HR user.
Okay.
So once you go through the life event, as we previously have seen, you're going to pick the plans that you're going to allow them to re-enroll in. For this particular instance, we're going to allow them to re-enroll in their medical, dental, and vision. So step 2 would actually be going in, selecting the correct coverage tier. So for this one, you'd want to make sure that you actually select the employee, spouse, or the family coverage, whichever they're going to choose to move forward with, and clicking through all of those benefits until you get to the end and you actually sign a new confirmation statement. So I think it's really important to note that just because you go to the medical tab and you select family and you click enroll, we do not accept anything without a signature confirming that that is what the employee has wanted or what you are selecting for the employee. So they must confirm that. Simply going in here and clicking on it does not put that benefit into effect.
And so, Lindsey, as I look at the benefits available, do you have the ability to make some benefits enrollable but not others in a life event scenario?
Yes. So specifically on certain plans, if you choose on specific life events that they could only change coverage tier, maybe they're not allowed to move from one plan or the other just because they got married. They can only go to a different coverage tier. You could set that up. You can set up different plans to pop up for different life events, and you can set up different situations for those plans. Maybe dental, you want to allow the person to choose a different plan if they like, but vision, maybe they again can only change a coverage tier. But you can definitely customize by plan and what you can do within that plan for each different life event. So after you've gone all the way through, you've signed the confirmation statement, you'll see the congratulations screen. You're going to go back out as an HR user and you're going to review the coverage tab. And you're going to want to see what took place on here. So for instance, the first thing that I notice is we added a spouse, but we still have employee-child coverage, and our effective date still says 1/1/2019. So to me, that tells me that something wasn't complete. So this would mean maybe we didn't sign the confirmation statement, or if you're passing this off to the employee once you've completed the life event for them, this tells me that the employee hasn't done their part by logging in and completing part 2.
How much do you see that, Lindsey, where maybe the employer does their part and let's do a scenario. So I'm Wes Steele and I've had a baby, and now I've told you, my HR department, that I've had that child, and you've opened it up for enrollment for me. How often do you see where the employee doesn't take that second step and go in and actually enroll the child?
I would say it's common. I think it's really, I guess, based on communication, which we really assist with setting out some stuff to help the employee get through that life event as needed. So I think it's just a matter of making sure that you're following up with them to make sure that they're completing their portion. And then maybe taking a chance, if once you get closer to that date that you know those 30 days are really getting close, of maybe stepping in as the HR user and assisting them if they need help completing that. So that way we do get the child on in a timely manner.
Now, Lindsey, you've known me a long time, and I'm definitely the person that would come to you on the 31st day and let you know that I had a child that I need to add to my plan, and maybe I didn't think about it. So now I'm outside of the plan rules. So what do I do now?
Well, we would complete the same initial step of adding the child to the coverage, and then we would see as you add the child, it's not going to allow you to open up any plans, but then the child is going to show up. But then we would have to use what we call the enable enrollment manually and add the coverages based on that.
So there is a way, if I, as the paternalistic HR person, want to do something to take care of my person, maybe it was even my fault. You know, I was on vacation, the employee notified us they wanted to enroll. I came back and they were past their 31 days. There is a way where we can get that process in the event it absolutely has to be done that way.
Yes, and we do understand that there are one-offs. We do ask that if you are seeing where you're using that feature more than what would be just a one-off, that maybe we can help adjust some timelines on the birth of a child. Maybe you're gonna, like Christine said, tell the employee they have 30 days to get it to you, but maybe you want 45 days to enter them in. So we could make adjustment on that for you. I do like to note that it is really important to make sure that we're using the proper life events. That way the employee record is correct and up to date, because that is very important in ACA reporting and coding, making sure that that is showing correctly on months that individuals are covered, waiting periods, et cetera. So if you're finding that you're using that enable enrollment manually more often than not, then maybe we should review that, especially if we're doing ACA reporting, because that'll really assist with that, making sure that information is accurate. Once you enroll the employee, for instance, on this one, we saw that we still didn't see the employee spouse. But if you have family coverage and you are enrolling another baby onto that coverage and you just want to verify that that child is on there, when you click the pencil on the medical tab, there's going to be another screen that shows up. And if you click individuals covered, it's actually going to list who all is covered on this plan. So one thing that I see a lot is an employee says, well, I put my child on the demographics tab, but they should be covered on my dental. Well, if they're not selected as covered on the dental, or if they're not showing up on here, then they may truly not be covered on that for a reason. So this is a way that you can tell exactly what individuals are covered on that specific plan, and even if there's more dependents that are listed on the demographics tab. One thing that I will note, Wes, if you don't mind going backwards one time, along with ACA and EDI feeds and a lot of other reasons, you should never be removing a dependent by going in here and just Xing the dependent out. That can really cause some major issues on the EDI, but also on the ACA reporting, because we have no event linked to why this employee is gone and where they went and what happened to them. So it's really important to make sure that if you need to remove an individual from coverage for any reason, that you're using the proper processes to do that by doing a life event.
Next up, we're going to talk about Cobra troubleshooting. And we've defined that there are really 3 types of clients when it comes to Cobra. Typically, you have either an outside vendor that sends all Cobra notifications and manages all aspects of Cobra when someone enrolls, or you have a Cobra vendor who will send out letters for you, but then it's your responsibility to notify your carrier if someone's enrolling, or you do it all. So Wes, I think you were going to have another poll right now to determine how Cobra is handled with our clients who were on the call.
And let's take a look. I'll give everyone 30 seconds or so to answer. So the question is, how does your organization manage Cobra administration? Do you have somebody that helps you with it all? You've got some responsibility there, or you do it in-house? This, by the way, I will point out, just over the last 2 years, while if I could give a little color while these poll questions are being answered, over the last 2 years, I would say that Cobra has been one of the hottest topics, along with leave administration. If you are in a situation where you are doing that all in-house and you want to know how much it would cost to have somebody else assist you with that, that's something that certainly your broker advisor can help you with. But we also do at Steele have a handful of Cobra administrators that we work with literally every day. So if you have Cobra pain, be sure to reach out to your customer success manager and just ask the question, what can I do? And we can help you get some options in front of you in partnership with the broker advisor. So taking a look at what we've got here. 50% have somebody that handles it soup to nuts. Another 25% are using a partial service, and then 15% either do it in-house or aren't sure. Christine, anything that surprises you about that?
No, not really. I mean, that's kind of what I was expecting. So in terms of how the case is set up, it will be different for those who it's their responsibility to do some part of the Cobra administration, which we'll talk about. But for that 50% who have someone who handles everything, that's awesome. That's typically the best scenario, because that takes a lot of the processing off of your plate.
And for those of you on the line that are maybe just wondering how much does it cost to outsource Cobra if you're not doing it today, generally speaking, you can expect that that's going to cost between 50 cents and $1.25 per participant per month. And that's going to be based on the number of Cobra eligible benefit people that you have. So feel free to reach out to us if you want more information about that. Christine, I'm going to kick back to you.
There you go. Okay. So next screen.
Bear with me. I'm having some of those same issues you had, and I'm going to fix it.
Telling you, it's all those transitions you tried to add to my presentation this morning.
Well, you know, Christina, I like it to look good. I'm guilty.
It was working perfect when we went through the run through. So if you answered that you contract with a Cobra administrator to handle letter service, carrier notification, premium collection, all you need to do is term that employee or the dependent if it's like a divorce life event or an overage dependent on our platform. And then you'll either notify your Cobra administrator of the event if you're handling that via a portal, or we'll send it over on a file feed if we have a Cobra file running for you. And then the Cobra admin takes things from there. You do not want to continue to have those employees in our system with active benefits. They should just be listed with their coverage termination or employment termination date. So if you have letter service only, or you do it all, there's a few additional steps that are going to be required when someone extends coverage via Cobra. You'll still want to term them as normal while they're in their decision-making process. So you shouldn't continue to keep someone active for benefits until you hear back whether or not they want Cobra or anything like that. Just go ahead and term them as you normally would. Once they determine, if they decide that they want to extend coverage, then you would need to change the employee back to active, update their job class to Cobra if we're talking about an employment termination, and then you'll need to re-enroll them in any benefits that they've elected, and just those benefits that they've elected for Cobra. All of these steps are outlined in our user guide, and if you need an updated user guide or you don't have one, please reach out to your CSM so that we can get one of those to you. And we are going to touch briefly on some issues or some things that we've heard with regards to census and payroll reporting. Some of the comments that we hear from time to time are, I could save so much time if I didn't need to enter all of these new hires into the system, or I really wish I didn't have to key all these new deductions into payroll. We definitely want to help you with that and try to automate as much of this for you as possible. Lindsey, I'm going to have you talk about Census Upload.
Sure. So if your company is experiencing a large influx of employees, that a new hires a large group of them, we can assist in loading those into the system for you. All we need is for you to provide us all the required information that we would need to do that, which would mostly come out of your payroll. And if you have questions about what those fields are, then we would have our customer success manager provide you with a standard template which has the fields that we would need. And you can either complete that standard template and send it over to us, or if you could set up a similar template within your payroll and populate the data and send it over to us, then we could put it into our format and load it into the system for you. So this is what our standard template looks like. This is just the required versus optional information, just a little snippet. There's obviously several more lines that would include your employment information that would be required on there. And some of this would vary based on what you have chosen within your group of what you would need to provide.
We're going to talk about simplifying payroll deductions, specifically how the system determines a payroll start date, some troubleshooting with payroll deduction codes, and custom payroll files. So when your CSM sits down and completes what we call our workbook with you, which is all of the information that's necessary to build your case, or maybe we're doing a re-enrollment, they will ask you for a listing of 2 specific dates that we need. And this is really important for those of you that are going to be doing re-enrollments for us in the fall, just because I feel like there has been maybe a misunderstanding about what our definition of a processing date is. So I want to make sure that everyone has a good understanding to be sure that we can get your payroll processing dates on the right track for your new plan year. The processing date is the first date that we can provide you with your payroll file for the corresponding pay date. And you'll find the deduction start date listed for each plan on the coverage tab of the employee, like I'm showing here with the example. And in order for a deduction to be included for a specific pay date, the enrollment must be completed by the day before the processing date.
Christine, if I could back you up there a little bit and just make sure we're all on the same page. So I'm gonna say a few things and you tell me if I'm on the right track from an understanding perspective.
Okay.
So in any given new plan year, it's important that we have an up-to-date payroll calendar in our system for the next plan year. And that helps us understand when benefits are going to be deducted or when they should be deducted from a paycheck, from which paycheck it should be deducted from. Yes.
Yes.
And so when Steele has those payroll deduction dates in our system, we can set up recurring reporting to where we're telling people the proper periods that deduction should come out. And when we use a cutoff date, for example, based on your example, on January the 8th, what that means is that any changes that get entered before January 7th will appear on the upcoming payroll, and then beginning on January do I have that right? Beginning after the cutoff. Okay, let me correct.
No.
I'm going to kick to you, and I'm going to let you correct me.
So the payroll date, the deduction date is actually the pay date, the day that the employee's paycheck, the employee's receiving their paycheck. So a processing date that we would expect to see for a January 8th payroll, as an example, would be maybe a date of January 5th or January 2nd. It would be a realistic date that you need to receive the payroll file so that you can make those entries into your payroll system. If we are giving you your report too close to when you're processing your payroll, you're not going to be happy with us, because we know that you need to get that information into your system and be able to get your system closed down and ready for payroll processing. So let's go with January 2nd as the processing date for the January 8th payroll. What that means is that if an employee logs into the system to enroll, or you're making changes in the system on January 2nd, it's not going to hit that January 8th payroll start date. The last day that you can be entering information into our system in order to show a January 8th start date would be the day before the processing date. So in this example would be January 1st. And Wes, you didn't mention when we started about the Q&A, but if there's anybody that's got any questions surrounding that, I don't know if anyone's been asking questions, but.
Yes, we've got one question in Q&A so far. And for those of our guests on the line, if you have questions about life events, payroll cutoff dates, automatically creating employees on census files, any question that you have related to those, you're welcome to drop into the Q&A box, and we'll be getting into Q&A here shortly as we finish up what we have prepared. Okay.
So it's just important to understand, especially because we know that you'll be meeting with your CSMs here soon and providing us with a payroll calendar. And a lot of times we give you a spreadsheet and it simply says processing date and pay date. So we want to make sure that you understand that processing date, we're not looking for the day that your payroll people are processing payroll. We want to know what is the day that you want to receive the payroll file from us, to give you enough time to be actually entering that information into your system. And now we're going to talk about some deduction troubleshooting pain points that I want to make sure everyone understands can be corrected. Some things that we hear sometimes is we have multiple plans using the same deduction code, and I have to manually calculate the total. A common one for this would be maybe voluntary term life. If you have one deduction code for all voluntary term life, and we send you a payroll file that shows what the employee cost is, what the spouse cost is, what the child cost is, and you're having to manually calculate those to enter it into your payroll system, let us know, because there are things that we can set up on our side so that we send you one transaction for voluntary term life that is the total of the premiums.
One, right, Christine? If anybody is taking our reports and manually adjusting them to get what they need into their payroll, we need to know that, right? Because there's 99 times out of 100, it's something we can do about it, yes?
Right, exactly. And like I said, you may not be the person who initially worked with us on the system implementation, and you might be having the mindset of, well, this is the way it was when I got here, so this is what I have to work with. So just wanting to make sure that you understand we can update those things for you and make your life a little easier. Another issue is we have multiple codes based on plan tier. So if an employee is changing from single to family coverage, as an example, that you're needing two different transactions on our payroll file. You need one to stop the deduction for one plan and another line on the report to start the deduction for the new deduction code with the family coverage. If that's something that you need and you're not currently seeing that on our payroll reports, let us know, because again, it is something that we can set up. And if your deduction codes aren't included on your payroll file at all, let us know that, because it could be that maybe we just never received those, and it is one of those things that's just kind of dominoed from year to year to year, and it hasn't been updated in the system. So go back and be sure to provide those to your CSM, and we can get that corrected for you. I wanted to talk a little bit about custom payroll files. We can set up files that will align with your payroll system to give you the opportunity to upload those into your payroll system and not have to be manually keying. I just wanted to list some of the providers that we have set up custom payroll files for. Some of them are a work in progress. Most of these, we have a large part of automation running on those. So we work with other carriers as well, and many will allow for an Excel CSV type spreadsheet to be uploaded. So if you know what that format is, provide it to your CSM so that we can work on building that file for you. But this is a list of some of those that we have had success in uploading files to.
So circling on that for just a second, Christine, is it fair to say that if a payroll system will accept a CSV or Excel-based import, and if a customer can give us what that import format is, what's our degree of success in order to be able to providing that in the formats that are requested from whoever the payroll provider may be?
I would say close to 100%. I mean, there are those files where we run into a few glitches just because the way that the group has been built on the platform doesn't really align with all of the fields that are needed for the report. So it may take us longer to build that file, and it might be more of a project than simply creating a spreadsheet, because we may need to make some changes in the way that the case is built. But for 99% of the cases, that's probably not the case. And so we should be able to set it up for you without issue.
I saw a second question come into the Q&A, and we're going to get down to the Q&A here in just a moment here. And before we move on from this, though, I think it's interesting to note that are sometimes not all payroll systems are created equally with how different employers use them. So, for example, if company A uses Skyward, is that guaranteed to be the exact same setup for an integration file for how company B uses Skyward, or is there some variance there with how different companies use their payroll systems?
There's definitely some variance, and it depends a lot of times with some of these companies on what modules you've purchased and what their system will allow us to upload to, whether or not there's a payroll module and a benefits module, just a payroll module. Sometimes, we've been told with some of these that you need to have something that's called crystal reporting in order to be able to upload files. So where I may have 100% success with 5 groups that have a certain payroll provider, then I might run into one case where maybe they are on a different version. They have a different module that they've purchased, and it's not possible to use the same template or do some of the same things that we're doing with the rest of our clients.
And Christine, I know both in the advisory community and the employer community, as they're as employers are considering implementations on the front end, there are oftentimes generic questions asked like, do you integrate with ADP? Really general questions like that. And I know, at least from our side, in our conversations with potential customers, as we bring people on, we're always trying to manage expectations just because it's more difficult and complicated than what most people realize to get one customer going from an integration standpoint. And that brings me to a question that I have for you is, if I'm an employer on the line right now, and maybe I'm not automating my deduction imports, what advice would you have for me today?
We have a couple different scenarios with that. A lot of our clients will automate their open enrollment payroll file and choose to manually key in their changes. And sometimes it's because they don't have that many changes and they feel like it's quicker for them to just key those in as they come through versus uploading files. And then there are other clients who choose to automate the entire process. And so we can walk you through that. Absolutely contact us, have a conversation with your CSM. Let's take a look and see what the requirements are for the system, the payroll system that you have, and how we can assist in automating. In some cases, like I said, it may be a project, just depending on if there's things that we have to rebuild within a case. But we definitely want to try to automate as much as we can so that you're not having to do manual entry.
Thank you, Christine. And that's putting us at about 55 minutes right now, which is our stated stopping point. I do want to get to the Q&A real quick. So let's just take a look and see what's in here now. I've got a question about deduction dates, and are we able to set deduction dates differently for individual products? So for example, maybe a medical deduction date and a dental deduction date may be different, and one may be a month in advance and the other may be in arrears, as an example.
It would depend on the scenario. And in most cases, just generally speaking, the way that the system is configured, it's not really looking at specific products as much as it's looking at when the employee is entering into the system to enroll, has that processing date been met, and when is the next deduction date. We do have scenarios, though, where core benefits, maybe they get deducted in advance, and voluntary benefits are deducted once the coverages take effect. We are working on some testing with a few of our groups on setting up some custom script to be able to accommodate that. It isn't 100% refined, and some of the issues that we run into is you have to have that advanced time in order for the system to be able to report the deduction. So depending on what your waiting periods are for new hires and when benefits begin, that can also pose an issue if it's a year-round situation. I mean, if you allow benefits to begin immediately, there's no way for the system to calculate pulling deductions 30 days in advance because there isn't that advanced time to allow that to happen. But if you do have those scenarios, talk to your CSM and we can see what we can do about it.
The last question that we have is about Skyward integration specifically. Can you speak to what we can and can't do with Skyward?
Again, Skyward is one of those that is very customizable on their side. I do have some graphics that they put together for me on the reporting and how to set those up. But what we found is that each group has to set up some specific integrations on their side. And once they do that, then it's a pretty simple process, but you have to go through that process at least once with Skyward to map the deductions and how they will feed into the system. And I've got several groups that have been uploading without issue every year. And then some others who have had a little bit more of a difficult time with it. And typically it's surrounded by either the version that they're on or the modules that they have through their provider. But we do have some groups with great that have been having good success.
Would it be fair to say if a group on the line is interested in more connectivity with Skyward, they should reach out to their CSM as a next step, and we could start a conversation?
Sure, absolutely.
Very good. So that wraps the questions that we have in the Q&A for today. Christine and Lindsey, thank you so much for being with us, as well as our audience members as well. We know it's the week after a holiday weekend, so we're thankful that you chose to spend some time with us this morning. We hope that you had a wonderful 4th of July. This is the week 6 of the 12-part SEAL learning series. Next week, we'll be back in week 7 with Amanda Rhodes from Stratosphere Quality and Maureen Cook from Futaba Industrial Texas. And we're going to be talking about enrollment methods in call centers for those of you that are interested in maybe not doing on-site enrollments in a COVID world this year, but you're interested in having a place where your employees can call in and talk to somebody over the phone to help with enrollment. So thank you so much for your time this morning, and we look forward to seeing everyone next week.
Sorry for all the technical difficulties. Thank you.